with every sip and laugh. Coffee's the fuel, martini's the craft. Conversation swirling in the...
Woo! Good morning, Alan.
Evening, Leanne. I just realized with that introduction that I'm glad I have a sufficient number of different shirts.
Well, we might need a new introduction for all the episodes that we've done recently, because then we can mix it up and make sure that we've got every outfit covered. I think we should do that. I mean, it's like I said, it was that was created using AI, so it won't take very long to create a new one. Hey, how's your week been?
Week's been good, thank you. I've been here, but a lot of things to do around the house. Time to spend in the pool, but also, I'm working. I got one book submitted. I'm working on two others, and now my agent thinks we can sell a fourth. So it's been just a great season so far.
Have you got like a KPI? I mean, are you trying to go for 100 books?
I used to tell people that, you need a book a year these days, and a book every other year. But now I tell them a book a year. But this year, I actually had to count up. I have 54 original commercially published books. I have 15 additional editions of those books, and they are in 16 languages. So I didn't expect to be setting records still, but 3 book contracts and a fourth that we're trying for. And I'll get them all finished this year. I have release dates for 2 of them already for next year. Not bad.
That's not bad at all. I feel like I definitely need to get another book out for sure. And this is the topic of today, is like how to fearlessly hit publish. And obviously fearlessness has had a bit to play in that for you, Alan, but we'll get into that in a second. If you are joining us live, let us know where you're joining us from. Let us know maybe how many books you have. Would love to hear from you in chat as well. And please ask questions as we go through this. My week has been, we're in winter here, and I'm getting very jealous of all the summer vacation photos I'm seeing from my friends in the States and in Europe. It's just, not that it's bad here, but yeah, I'm not really a winter person. So you've published all these books. You write emails every week. I do a podcast every single day. So I thought it might be fun to talk about that whole process of publishing and doing it fearlessly. I guess the first question I have for you, Alan, is what's the cost of not hitting publish? Of having great ideas, great expertise, but not actually following through?
Well, we find this when we try to market, and we talk to clients who don't want to do things too fast, and you have to convince them of the lost opportunity. And the same applies to publishing. Now, if you're publishing a traditional hard copy book, it has a big danger of going out of style fairly quickly because of changes. And so, $1 Million Consulting's in its 6th edition. I'm writing the 5th edition of getting started in consulting. But you can use your website as an organic appendix, so people can go there to get the latest. It doesn't have to be in the book, which is a big breakthrough. But let's face it, if you want to be a thought leader, and if you look at thought leaders, if you look at Marshall Goldsmith and Seth Godin and Marcus Buckingham and Dan Pink and people like that, all of us have multiple books. And all of us are constantly publishing something. I consider video and audio and podcasts and so forth publishing.
Agree.
But blogging is publishing.
Well, even what we're doing now, I guess, is a form of publishing, right?
I think so. Yes, certainly.
Yeah.
So, by the way, good morning to everybody and good evening to everybody. Good to see you here. Thanks for being here. And I think that a lot of people are made aware. They might not get all the skills, and they might not be able to apply, but they get awareness through books that can greatly enhance their lives and their professions. And so consequently, the people who generate the books are going to get a lot of credit.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I wanted to talk about just the difference with a book, which was amazing. So I just want to say good day to everyone that is joining us. Alan, you alluded to that before. Amy, great to see you here, Amy. Michael, some great familiar faces here. Michael's joining us from Melbourne. We've got someone who is currently listening to $1 Million Consulting, thanks to a recommendation. Interesting. So they found your work, Alan, through that book, which has been that was a pillar book. DD, congratulations, Alan, and thank you for my awesome book title. Oh, very excited to hear more about that. Another user joining us from Brisbane, and Stephen is joining us from Atlanta, Georgia. Amazing. All the time zones covered. Now, what's fascinating around what you said about a book in particular, so my story was I had this podcast called First Time Facilitator. I had over 200 episodes of that. And I thought I'll take what I learned from that and put it into a book. Just thinking that was a smart thing to do, repurpose that. What was fascinating is that a client actually booked me and she's like, "Oh, listen to all your podcasts." But it wasn't until I read your book that I decided that we needed you in our organization. I found that fascinating. What do you think it is? Is it just that asset that books still hold authority? And do you think that will continue from, 2025 and beyond?
Yeah, it's not going to change at all. And people will say, well, there'll be a demise in books because people have the internet, or electronic books will drive out hard copy books. And the fact is, there is still a plethora of hard copy books. Publishers are still
Yeah.
publishing them. People are still buying them. Books will never go out of style. It's what people do. Not everybody reads a book, but most people do. There was a show called Cheers here, a comedy on TV for many years.
Yeah.
And the guy behind the bar was a coach. And they said, "Coach, hey, you look a little tired." He said, "I've been working on a book." I said, "How long have you been working on the book?" He says, "A year." "Wow, I didn't know you were a writer." He said, "No, I'm trying to read it." So,
That's a good line. Yeah.
yeah. So I think that everybody has a first book. I might have said this in one of our earlier broadcasts, but to think you can't write a book is silly. Everybody's had a first book, whether you're Patterson or you're Danielle Steele or you're me. You always have a first book, and after that, you get other books, and other books, and other books. So I think it's a primary way of communicating. It's a primary way of getting credibility. It's a primary way of forcing yourself to create IP.
Mm.
And the trouble is, when people try to write anything, a blog post, a book, short, long, doesn't matter, they self-edit. They self-edit because they're
Yeah.
afraid of being critiqued. They're afraid of being incomplete. They're afraid of this, afraid of that. Never self-edit. Never, ever self-edit. I don't say there are 7 key points for a proposal and then say, I wonder if there are 5 or there should be 8. I just say there are 7. I move on. So it's important not to self-edit, and it's important not to worry about what people are going to think of you. The important thing is to be honest and provide value.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that. Like, what is the fear of hitting publish really come from? And to be honest, as we jumped on this, I was thinking, am I fearlessly publishing? In some forums, like on my podcast, I'm pretty fearless. I can't self-edit. It's a daily podcast. I just have to say what it is I'm thinking for 5 minutes and put it onto a podcast. But the second that turns into something that's written like a newsletter, I I still publish it, but I got to say there's a bit of fear that sits in that because I am editing. I am I am worried about what people will think. So talk to me about that. Where does it come from and how do I get over that? Why is audio so easy but written is so tough?
Well, it comes from low self-esteem. There's an esteem problem that you feel that you're going to be critiqued by someone who might not even talk to you, but somewhere out there, so forth says, "Well, she's full of crap." That's terrible.
Yeah,
And you
that's
worry
right.
about that. And
Yeah.
that's because we have the wrong metric. The metric is not affection. The metric is respect.
Mm.
Uh, and I don't care if people are angry with me. I don't care if people don't believe I'm correct. I don't care if they think I'm arrogant. I write what I think is true, and I try to provoke people to think. And even when people don't agree with me, at least I provoke them to think.
Mm.
I'll tell you an interesting statistic, and that is, I always believed this was true, but I actually tested it. I had 200 people in Boston at a workshop, and I went around to 200 people really quickly, and I wrote on the easel, "How did you first come to hear from me?" Book, speech,
Yeah.
so on.
Yeah.
Of 200 people, 180 said it was from one of my books. And the other 20 said it was a recommendation from someone who had read one of my books. So don't kid yourself. Books are a powerful marketing tool.
Mm.
And they force you to be concise and direct with what you believe in. You only have 150 pages or
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
and you can discipline yourself to do it. I mean, there are some people I read use AI to post something on LinkedIn, and that's absurd.
Yeah. That's how I found you, Alan, was through recommendation from Michael Bungay Stania, who's like, "You got to read $1 Million Consulting." I'm going to say just to welcome a few more people in and then ask you a question on that. Kia ora, I'm Darren, joining from Aotearoa. Gosh, I don't know if I probably butchered that name, Darren. Great to have you here in New Zealand. Joseph from Brighton in Michigan. Zayed is joining us from
Howdy.
Saudi.
Yeah.
Really proud of Alan's contributions, encouraging advice and getting started in consulting. And Marianne from Meanjin, Brisbane. Great to have you here. Let us know what your questions are if you're thinking of publishing. Now, Alan, the skeptic in me is like, okay, a book, but Alan, $1 Million Consulting was like, it was a pillar book. It was a groundbreaking book. It sold millions of copies. What about the person down the road that has a book that, 100 people buy? Will it have the same, obviously it won't have the same impact. Is it still important to publish?
Look, the worst received book I ever wrote was my third book. It was on strategy, and this was in about 1990 or 1989. It was my worst selling book. It never went to soft cover. It was never translated. And I made about $2 million eventually from it because it was on
Wow.
strategy, and people picked it up and said, get this guy.
Yeah.
So I've had 4 legitimate bestsellers of my books, 4 real, $1 Million Consulting, the Consulting Bible, Getting Started in Consulting. And right now, I'm halfway through writing the 5th edition, and Value-Based Fees. I got a recommendation from the Supreme Court of Western Australia Chief Justice, who told me that lawyers needed to read that book because they're not charging properly. And I had to let
Really?
him.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that the point here is that we fear writing because we're afraid of critique. We're afraid of being wrong. We're not sure of our real beliefs. And short of a therapeutic problem, you were told as a kid you'd never amount to anything. Short of that, we can work these things out. You work it out by first, you get a blog, you do a 2-minute video, you do a 2-minute podcast, you do something that is not difficult and modest, and then you start building on that.
Mm.
There is no such thing as writer's block. It's a psychological excuse. You write a word, then a second word, then a third word, then you have a sentence. You write 3 sentences, you have a paragraph, then you write a second paragraph. It's that easy. So that's how you do it.
That easy. That's how you write 70 plus books in your lifetime. Now, that just that point you made around sometimes we don't write because we're not sure of what our beliefs are. I've
Right.
discovered that actually publishing helps you refine the ideas. It forces you to refine the ideas because as you're writing it, you're like, oh, I'm not sure about that. What would make, you kind of have to work your way through it. So writing itself can be the therapy for getting yourself, I don't know,
That's
making
very
more of
true.
like understanding what your beliefs are.
That's very true. That's why some people journal and
Yeah.
they read their journal. That's exactly right. Now, if you publish commercially, it means other people have invested in you. So either your agent or the acquisitions editor has said you're good. And then the editorial committee, which ultimately will say publisher, says you're good. So right there, you're in great shape because these people of the gazillion proposals they get pick a very small amount. So if you're going to be published by them, it's a great statement in your worth. And I find that the higher you go, the more successful you are,
Mm.
the more people take shots at you because these are people who know they can't reach that height. So they try to shoot you off it. Okay. But the bullets never reach you. So publishing you don't need a bestseller. All you need is in your public square with your ideal buyers, people reading your book. And I did a strategy session for the LA Times training division because one chapter in my book on strategy, the original, was about strategy for training firms. And she said, that's the only chapter I read, but I've never read anybody talk about strategy for training firms. And they hired me.
Oh, so interesting.
Yeah.
I guess even being intentional around what your chapters are and designing that for your ideal client. What is your advice for someone who's stuck in draft mode? Let us know in chat. Like, where do you sit? Are you confident in publishing, or what do you want to produce more of? Is it a book? Is it a podcast? Is it just writing content on LinkedIn? Let us know where you want to publish more. If someone is stuck in draft mode, they've like got ideas, but they're like just hesitating and not following through. Any tips
Yeah.
for that?
And it's the easiest thing in the world to do, really. I mean, people make it difficult, but you
Yeah.
don't need a license.
No.
You don't need a certificate. You don't need a degree. You can sit down and write, and a lot of people without any credentials have written extraordinarily well.
Yeah. Okay. I love it. Yeah. There is no real barrier to entry. Now, I remember you saying this in Vegas, and I wanted to ask because I know sometimes you change your mind on things, but so I'm wondering if
It's called growth, Leanne. It's called growth.
it's great. Yeah, exactly. It's great, which is great. Like we should be able to change our mind on things. But I mean, you got a famous quote around if I believe something I said 2 weeks ago, I haven't. Do you remember what you've said about that? Haven't
I'm
changed my
constantly
mind.
I'm constantly surprised at how stupid I was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, so good. So this question is around I think it was around your Monday morning memo, like the newsletter that you write weekly, and I'll put a link to that in a second. And you said that you actually write for yourself, you don't write for the reader. And I remember
Right.
writing that down, thinking that's so counterintuitive. No one has ever said that to me. Why did you
Well,
say that?
well, because uh, your readers are diverse. Your readers are at different stages of life. They have different beliefs, but the commonality is they want to read what you've written because that's why they're there.
Mm,
And so it's impossible to please everybody. So I please myself. And by pleasing myself, it's easier for me to write. Now, for example, when I speak, I don't care about the audience in that. I'm not looking for tens on smile sheets. I'm not looking for standing ovations, which is silly.
yeah,
I'm looking to please the buyer because the buyer can rehire me and refer me to others. In doing a newsletter that's free, I just want to please myself. One guy wrote me and said, Last week's newsletter did nothing for me. If you keep doing that, I'll have to unsubscribe." I said, "Let me understand this. You're threatening to unsubscribe from a free newsletter and you expect me to take some action?" So if you write for yourself and you understand that's a freeing experience, not being under the fake obligation, the phony obligation to please others, just please yourself, you'll write much more easily.
agree. But this is a tough one because I think this also links to your advice around not having a niche. Because the second you put yourself into a niche, like let's just say my niche was coaching middle managers, right? And so every week I think I've got to write an article about that. Now, for me, that's the definition of boredom. It's prison.
Yeah.
But even in my newsletter today, I wrote about AI and technology, and because I love just testing things out. And I thought this is actually not really related to my expertise, but I'm going to share it because I'm fascinated in that. But I tell you what, there's a bit of fear just hitting publish on that because I'm like, well, this is like outside of the scope of what readers expect. What do you say to that?
I don't care. I mean, if your intent is to write for yourself and to provoke people to think, not convert them, just provoke them to think, then you're doing your job.
Mm.
If people have subscribed to a newsletter, if they're paying for it, or they're paying for some membership or something, you have an obligation to meet what you promised. And so if you promised a newsletter on, let's say, financial
Yeah,
acumen, then you shouldn't be publishing something on politics. They paid to expect something.
sure.
But, Monday Morning Memo, for example, to which you alluded,
Yeah.
is about what I'm thinking about at the moment or what's irritating me or where I think there's some promise. And so people understand they might get a little bit of everything there. And that's why they look. But that's, of my newsletters, that's by far the one that generates the most reaction.
I agree because it's current, it's basically you have no idea what's going to come next. And so that's better than I guess signing up to a newsletter where it's about the same concept all the time. And it's like,
Yeah.
how many times can you spin this? And I just think to that poor reader, the poor author, like surely they're getting bored of this topic. Like there's like 10,000 hours. Like anyway. So question then is, I mean, you kind of alluded to this when you're doing a paid subscription, or if you've written a book, obviously you got to promise on the value that you want to deliver on that, right? But we're talking about this is the interesting thing around publishing maybe various posts on social media. How do you decide what not to share? There's this whole thing around vulnerability, authenticity. How do you
Well,
decide what not to put on
I mean,
online?
I've never known what authenticity means. I think it means honesty, really. And I would say that you don't post anything that is critically religious or political or sexual. That's the standard, and I believe that's the standard for a reason.
Hmm.
Those are very private, compassionate things, unless you're writing for the Religious Quarterly or something.
Yes.
So, but otherwise, you avoid that. I think you avoid things that are personal to the extent that you're engaged in therapy. Uh, it's okay to write for therapy, but it's not okay in a newsletter or something. You should be writing so that people can be not empathetic for you, but are provoked to be explorative in what they do and what they think about.
Yeah.
So, I think that those are the things you stay away from. And I found that there's too much of a tendency today to weave politics into everything.
Mm,
Of course you feel that way. You are this.
yeah.
I hate that stuff. We have a question here from Zayed. I see
We
it.
do, yeah. I'll pop it on the screen. I'll
Uh,
actually read it because we don't have the whole thing there. But I have a question. Maybe you have some thoughts on it. What topic areas do you suggest to focus on? Do I focus on my competencies, people who I want to serve, learned lessons in my career, work, or personal life, because at some point I stopped because of lack of direction in what I wanted to write. And my wish is to write a valuable book to people. Yeah, I hear you, Zaid. I understand. I get this question.
Yeah. So that's a very common question because
Yeah,
it's a very good question.
yeah.
And I would suggest, Syed, that you look at it this way. Ask yourself, what values do you provide for people? And you must provide quite a few, but what value do you provide to people? And who do you think can best benefit from them? So there's the value, and there's your ideal reader. In marketing, it's your ideal buyer. And that's what you write and to whom you write. So, for example, I'm a car guy. I love cars, but I'm not going to write about cars. It's a hobby. I have a train layout. I'm not going to write about trains. It's a hobby. Um, but I know a hell of a lot about self-esteem. I know a hell of a lot about success. I know a hell of a lot about setting the proper metrics for yourself. So that's what I write about because it thrills me. I have social proof to show that it's valid. And I think people really can use it, you really need it. So look to see who you want to help and how you're going to help them. And that's what you write about.
Yeah, I think saying that though, Alan, you do like why you don't purely write about cars and talk about features of a car and engines and horsepower. You do mention like you will bring in like your personal anecdote around that. And I think that makes it just humanizes the topic a bit more. So I think, yeah, I like that you do that.
Well, yeah, and you use those as analogies and examples, though. For example,
That's
I've
right.
mentioned the fact that I have these crashes on my train set, and sometimes something goes on fire, and but that resembles real life. You have emergencies, you deal with them, you know.
Yeah.
I build models and I find out that, I've made some mistake. I read the instructions wrong or the illustrations wrong, and I have to go back and fix it. Welcome to real life. Nothing's perfect.
Mm. So hopefully that helps you, Zaid. Let us know when you decide to publish. I wanted to just share this one. Where do your ideas come from, especially when you publish so often? Because I do this daily podcast, and so I'm like, where do ideas come from? Just from life, just from living every day. Like at the moment, I'm trying to switch my coffee order so I drink a more healthier type of coffee. But what I'm doing is I'm going to the same cafes, and they think I'm going to order the same thing, so they're reinforcing this old habit I don't want anymore. So it's almost like I have to break up with my barista, start with a new cafe, so they know me as the long black drinker. But like I did a 5-minute episode about that. But really, the moral of the story was how your environment can, the people that you're around can just reinforce your old identity that you don't want anymore.
Well, I
It's
agree. I agree with you completely, but you also have to be in the moment to do that. And so, I'm going to
correct.
go to Nantucket in a couple of weeks. It's
Yeah.
wonderful island. And we have a house on the beach there, and there's a studio like the den I'm in right here, and I do my writing there at about 6 in the morning. The sun comes up, and the Atlantic Ocean is in front of me,
Oh,
and
gorgeous.
on the lawn, I would see these robins come down and pull worms out of the ground at that hour of the morning, and I immediately thought, of course, the early bird gets the worm, but then I thought, yeah, but the early worm gets eaten.
Hmm.
And I realized there was IP there in terms of you don't have to be first to market. Sometimes it's dangerous. And so if you just look at things and stop, keep your mind blank, which sounds like it's counterintuitive, but keep your mind blank,
Yeah.
and you take in what's around you, you'll see those ideas all the time. So, consequently, Leanne and I were chatting before the show, and she mentioned something which reminded me of something else. I made a little note on my pad here because I want to follow up tomorrow. I have these pads all over the place. They're in my briefcase, in all my cars, on the night table. And the next day, when I look at a note, if I understand why I wrote it down, I'll develop IP around it. If I can't understand why I wrote it down,
What tone is that, Alan? What is that ringtone?
that's my phone.
What is it? What song is it? I was trying to Shazam
It,
that song.
it's Bocelli, yeah, Andrea Bocelli.
Oh,
Um,
lovely.
if I read my note and the next day I don't know why the hell I wrote it, I throw it out. But the key is to be in the moment. And I find this is
Ah,
interesting. Like I'm at my computer, obviously, and I have a keyboard down here, and I can type as I look at you. I can touch type, and I take notes with my clients so that I can send them personal notes later. But I also have this pad next to it, and I find when I coach people, I say things sometimes, and I say to myself, "That was brilliant, Alan. Don't lose it." And I make a note on the pad because otherwise I forget it. And so it's
yes.
interesting, ironic that we can learn while we're helping
Yeah.
others, but you
Yes.
have to be in the moment.
Well, we're lucky now with like transcription with Zoom. Like if you came up with something killer on this call, I mean, we've got the transcript for this, you got the video, you can just write something about that. I think the best, yeah, source of finding content that is helpful to your audience is actually, yeah, re-listening or going back to where you've been coaching someone or helping someone and just seeing like, what did you share? And what was, if that was resonant for the person you're talking to, likely it might be helpful for, a wider audience.
Yeah, and it might lead to something else for you as well. So
Mm,
life is about constantly learning and having you to do this, you have to be in conscious competency. You can't be in unconscious competency. You can't
yeah.
be worried about what you want to say in 2 minutes. You have to be in the moment now. I call these pivot points. And I just did a Zoom session this week on dramatic conversational pivot points.
Mm,
And so that's how you really make progress. And of course, that's interactive, but in writing something, you can make similar progress when you challenge someone's, traditional beliefs, not to show that they're wrong, but to show they need to think of things in different ways. So when you say you just lost a key talented person from your operation, don't replace them. And people will stop and read on. And then you say, you don't want to replace yesterday's job. You want to prepare for tomorrow's job. Is this
mm.
also tomorrow's job? It takes a minute or so to think that through, but it can make a big difference in how you invest. And that's what gets people attracted to you. You cause them to think like that.
Yeah. Okay. I have a question down here, but I want to be in the moment. We're just talking about that and ask a follow up. Your ability to summarize a situation and I think you call it like metaphorically poking someone in the eye with
Yeah.
like a banger one liner like that. How we all want to do that. Like, how do you do that? Is it because you're such a good writer that you're able to use language so well in the moment? Like, has writing
No,
created that skill for you, or
no, it goes back to fear. I'm fearless. I mean, I wrote a book called Fearless Leadership. So let's all consider ourselves leaders. You can't be an effective leader if you have fears. You have to be fearless. And consequently, um, I don't care if I say something where somebody says, "Oh my God, that's offensive." Well, okay, if you find it offensive, that's your business. But
yeah,
other people will say, "I never looked at it that way. That was really valuable." So, if I say to someone, "Look, if you have a difficult employee in your operation, what do you do?" He said, "Well, I go talk to them." So that's the wrong thing to do. You should talk to their boss because their boss has allowed this to exist. How many more people is he allowing to exist who aren't doing things properly? And
mm,
so you just shake people up for half a second, and they have to think this is pretty valuable advice.
yeah, definitely. And you can kind of when you do it, you can kind of see them like sit back and pause, and you're like, "Oh, cool!" Like that. That actually resonated. Question here: where do I find where to send my book for publication? Are self-publishing venues a viable source?
Okay, so first of all, if you want credibility, you should not self-publish, only if you're in a very tiny niche.
Yeah.
So if you're dealing with, let's say, managing directors of small law firms, a major publisher won't touch that, not a big enough audience. So you can self-publish if you have a tiny niche, but you don't send a book for publication. You send a book proposal for publication. It says on my site, and there are about 8 steps to a formal book proposal, like a sample chapter and a competitive analysis. So you send that to either an agent or an acquisitions editor at a publisher. And keep in mind, they're getting hundreds of these things. And so you have to make yours as stand out as possible. But you should follow the template for a book proposal, and that's what you send in.
Any tips for standing out?
Yeah, have a really catchy title,
Yep.
have catchy chapter titles, and in your premise, show people that what you're talking about is something with a very different twist. And so in this
Nice.
book, I turned in Seven Figure Consulting. The title Seven Figure is circled on the cover, and beneath it, it says in handwriting, uh, and if you read this carefully, 8 figures.
No, I like that. I like that. Um, and I'm curious about the difference between that book and Million Dollar Consulting, but I love it. Million Dollar and Seven Figure, it's fantastic. Amy shares, I love the living in the present approach. Don't overthink the past and future. Yeah, easier said than done. All right. And even in this live stream, the great thing about it is I have to be in the present with Alan. I can't, but we've also want to move this forward. So you're always balancing responding, getting your comments, and then thinking, where do we take this next? Which I think is, I guess, a generally good skill to have. So if you want to get better at being in the present, maybe start live streaming as well. Final question: what role does audience feedback play in shaping what you publish next? Do you listen to audience feedback, or do you just publish what you want?
I just publish what I want
Yeah,
because I'm the expert. People follow me because I have value.
yeah,
Occasionally, someone will say something that I say, that's an interesting point. But normally, my feeling is that they're looking for you, looking to you for leadership. They're looking to you to help light the way. And
Yeah.
so I want to present ideas to them consistently in my voice, not in someone else's voice, which is why I would never use AI, and I advise you not to. So I think that you can't be vulnerable to what you think the audience is expecting. Just tell them what you think is important.
Yeah, I like that because we do look to experts to think about what should we be focusing on next. And so that's why you would subscribe to someone as well, is for that. Hey, Alan, always great to chat with you. And I know it goes super quick.
Yeah,
So I just
chat
want to,
by. Thank you all for
I
coming.
know, can we, yeah, I just want to
Great.
say, maybe if I can throw that applause music on and just say, just applaud everyone that showed up today. So thank you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There you go. I'll get better one day at doing this. But Alan, it's always a pleasure to talk. Thanks for all your tips about fearlessly publishing. And we'll be back on the 31st of July, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 1st of August, Brisbane
Hope to see
time.
you then. Yeah.
See you then.